when you are just eating because it's good, you don't necessarily think about what it is that you're putting into your body and what it does to you. So we develop these really unhealthy relationships with food where it's not fuel to make us go, but it's things to make us feel better. Therapy helps with so much because we're so disconnected from our bodies, we're so disconnected from our behavior, we don't even know why we do most of the things that we do. Do you use food as fuel, or do you use food for other things? Do you use food when you're going through a breakup? Do you use food when you're lonely? Do you use food when you're anxious? Do you use food when you go to bed at night? Do you use food to help you wake up in the daytime? Do you use food to keep you going throughout the day? And what are you feeling in those moments when you choose certain foods?
Should black people see a black therapist?
You know what? There's a mental health crisis that's happening, and it is growing rapidly. And so without our representation and without us there are nuances that get missed. But I will also say this. There are benefits to seeing individuals who may not necessarily look like you.
Single-handedly, the best thing I've ever done, like, in my life.
Every time we have started to thrive, there are intentional things that are done to us in order to be able to set us back again and again. Mental health was not designed even for us as people of color.
Right.
This was one of the most racist institutions, and the mental health national institutions were literally used in order to further subjugate, exploit, and oppress us. The idea that we haven't completely lost our minds means that most of us have disconnected from our bodies just so that we can survive.
What's up, tribe? Welcome to another episode of Young, Black, and Vegan. I'm your host, Keith Terrell. Now, today we're back at one of my favorite restaurants in Atlanta, Helpful Essence, and we're with a special guest. She holds a doctorate in psychology. She's a clinical psychologist. She's been on over 200 shows, including CNN, Dr. Phil, Dr. Drew. I think I heard her pulling up listening to Dr. Dre, but now she's on Young, Black, and Vegan.
That was Killer Mike. That was Killer Mike, man.
Shout out Killer Mike for the Grammy nominations. But
real talk.
Welcome to the episode, none other than my sis,
Yes.
Spirit.
Hi, honey.
How you doing? Thank you for
so
joining
happy
me.
To be here. So
Yes.
happy to be here.
How you feeling today?
I'm feeling great, and this is like a full circle moment because I used to have one of my very first practices that I helped get off the ground in Atlanta right upstairs.
Wow.
So years ago, I mean, like, this is like maybe going back to like 2000. Ooh, I don't even want to date myself like that, but it was early. It was early. So we used to run down here in between clients all the time. So
well, you already know about the food. The food here is like amazing.
Yes.
Like I said, it's one of my favorite spots here. A place where, you know, you can actually get some healthy food that
Healthy
tastes
is
good.
so important. Listen, it's so important, especially in this day and age when we are running on steam, when stress levels are high, and people don't realize the importance of what you put in your body. It's either medicine that's helping you or poison that's killing you slowly. So I love that we are here today.
Yeah, so we're gonna dive into your story, what you do, and all of that. Let's get some food, because I'm hungry. I know you're probably hungry.
So hungry.
And then we'll come back and jump in. So we're gonna be right back with some plates. All right, so we're about to dive into this food, some amazing vegan Caribbean food, not processed, so.
Don't watch this, because what's about to happen is.
Yo, trust me, make sure y'all come see my brother Charles here at Helpful Essence, West End in Atlanta. You won't be disappointed, so.
Oh my gosh.
We're gonna dive in and we'll come back with some conversation.
So what did you put on your plate? You got black eyed peas?
Collard greens, black eyed peas.
Oh my gosh.
Plantains, some chickpeas, Brussels sprouts, some noodles, I'm not sure what that is, and then we got some sweet potato cornbread.
Man, this spicy eggplant.
It looks good.
It's a wrap.
If you're not hitting us with the after you take them bites, the plate ain't right. Yeah. We over here harmonizing.
So let me ask you, are you 100% vegan all the time? Or
Yes.
how do you incorporate your meals?
100% vegan for the last 8 years.
Really? So what made you decide to make the switch?
So, long story short, I was eating crazy. I was eating Jack
What's
in the Box.
crazy? Oh,
Eating
okay,
Jack in the
okay.
Box
No,
so
don't say
much.
their names. Okay, them drive-through places.
Eating Jack in the Crack so much that they knew me and they knew my order by heart.
Really?
You know, I've always been to health and fitness. Worked in the emergency room for 6 years, and
What were you doing in the emergency room?
ER technician.
Really?
So I worked on the
wow.
ambulance for 2 years. So really seeing the long-term effects of how food affects you. Family from down south, no vegetables as
Real
a kid,
talk, real
all
talk.
fried food, and for me it was just like the logical next step to do. And yeah, 8
So,
years later, here I am.
That's wild. So interestingly enough, I'm from LA. So
What part?
right out, well, if I'm being technical, right outside of LA, Pomona.
Okay.
Are you from Cali?
I'm from South Central LA.
Oh, really? My
Yeah.
grandfather still lives in South Central.
Yeah, so you know what's up.
Listen, 99th and Hoover is right there, baby. I literally grew up chasing airplanes, thinking that I could somehow beat them down
You was out there with
Century.
Sugar Free.
Oh,
in
what
Pomona.
Now listen though, Snoop used to come to Pioneer Chicken all the time. So you talk about chicken and fast food. So like we grew up in that space, but
Yeah.
the diet in Cali is really different compared to when I came down south. I came here for school and everything was so heavy. Now don't get me wrong, delicious, but like soul food, they talk about that freshman 10.
Yeah.
It was like almost freshman 20 because
Yeah.
it was like, oh my gosh, what is this and what is this? And everything was so thick and fried and greased and oh gosh, larded up, but it was so good, so good. And I think the interesting thing is when you are just eating because it's good, you don't necessarily think about what it is that you're putting into your body and what it does to you.
It's just a lot of what's in the food is addictive, the sugar and all of that. So while we're here, can you just talk about how to develop a healthy relationship with food and how food actually affects your mental health?
Well, you know, the interesting thing when I'm working with clients is I like to talk about their relationship with food going all the way back to childhood because that really informs how we learn what our relationship is. And it's really, for a lot of people, it's subconscious, it's in the background. So I've had clients who don't recognize that food is their comfort when they were going through hard times. I'll give you an example. Say their parents went through divorce, and when they would go with one of their parents on a certain day, they would always do ice cream, or to make them feel better, the parents would make their favorite food, but they were having it on the regular.
Right.
Or when their parents were grieving the loss of a parent, so their grandparent passes, or they move to a different city, food was very much a part of their relationship. The sweets that they would keep in their drawer, the sneak into the cupboards in the middle of the night, all of those things that then as they got older, when they were feeling stress, those would be the foods that they would keep with them. So we develop these really unhealthy relationships with food where it's not fuel to make us go, but it's things to make us feel better. And so as you start to talk about some of these things, like you said, you don't realize the ingredients that are in there. So you don't realize that certain chemicals can actually trigger or exacerbate depression or anxiety or ADHD. You don't realize that there are foods that you can eat that can actually boost your mood or improve your functioning. And so because we don't realize that mental health is tied to physical health, you don't recognize, oh, I feel horrible. Like after you ate all of the, what do you call it, Jack and Kill? Or
Yeah, Jack and the Crack. Yeah.
So this idea of like you eat this fast food, right? And a lot of times we know that it's going to make us feel worse afterwards, but we don't really make the connection. You go, oh my gosh, I just want those fries. If I can get them fresh and hot, or if I can get that extra sauce on that burger, it's going to be so good going in. But there's a reason why they throw it away 15 or 20 minutes after they make it, right? And I don't know if you've ever seen fast food sit like 30 minutes, an hour, 3 hours later.
No.
Them burgers are like a brick. Like you
Right,
could literally
right.
throw it through a window and break something because it has so much processed stuff in it that the question of is it really food, you know, is something that we have to question.
So when people are eating that, how is it affecting their mental health?
Oh my gosh. So when you start to eat those things, it creates and increases different hormones in your bloodstream. It actually literally can cause you to become more lethargic. It can slow down your focus, slow down your energy. And a lot of times we don't think about these hormones being released into our bloodstream all over, which then goes into our muscles, which goes into every organ. So you're talking about heart disease, you're talking about problems with your asthma, your emphysema, sometimes increased mucus production. Like you don't recognize how all of these things are just kind of interconnected, especially if you have other issues like asthma, high blood pressure, diabetes, and then you feed yourself these foods and it just makes everything worse. And so when you start eating to live, like think about how many times you've heard people go to the doctor and they'll say, oh, you're overweight, or you have high blood pressure, or you have a diabetes. And the first thing that they tell you is what? Exercise, lose weight, eat better. And the thing that we are hearing so often now, plant-based diets, plant-based diet. And it doesn't even have to be 24/7. So like when you talk about it, the reason why I asked you, are you 100% vegan all the time? I'm not. I am probably 3 or 4 days a week.
Right.
And when you start to look, I don't know if you've seen some of the studies that they're talking about around blue zones.
Yeah.
Have you heard about these centenarians all over the world? And they're studying. So for folks that don't know, because I'm just talking like they'll know, but centenarians are people who are living to be 100 and older.
Right.
And
But
they
not only living to be 100 and older, but still have a good
living
quality of life.
well. Oh my gosh, like living better than some folks in their 20s and 30s, right?
Right.
Like physically agile, mentally agile, getting up and exercising and riding horses and chopping wood at 100 years old and beyond, right? And so they went to study these folks in these what they designated as blue zones, and they just became blue zones because researchers literally, when they were like marking these places on maps, they literally just had a blue marker, so they kind of dubbed it as a blue zone, and it stuck.
Oh, Snoop has something to do with
Come
that.
on now, you know, West Side. Well, why you playing? A blue zone is in Southern California. There is
Right,
one there.
right.
So how long have you been doing your podcast?
Started 2 years ago, but last year is when I really went like ham full time.
It's very important that we are conscious of what we put in our body.
Absolutely.
And nobody's going to change our lives for us, and so we have to develop
Nobody's
that
coming to
healthy
save you.
relationship with food. Eat to live, like you
Yes.
said, and you know, I changed my relationship with food a long time ago, and so now it's like I work out so much that I want to see the results of that, because you can work out, but if you're still going to eat donuts, you're still going to do X, Y, and Z,
Come on,
then
canceling
you're
it
shooting
out.
yourself in the foot. And so it's just really important that, one, I highlight the best vegan food around the world, and then also like show you that you can still get whatever you were getting on a non-vegan diet on a vegan diet, and you don't actually have to be vegan, but it's just about having the knowledge to make better choices.
Yeah, and I think that that's part of what we have to talk about, because people struggle to cross over, and they struggle to really just change it up because they don't learn how to eat well. They don't learn good flavors. They don't learn incredible textures, so they get boxed into their
And that's the
limited
thing,
knowledge.
that nobody actually likes meat. You like the texture and the way that it's flavored, because you wouldn't eat
You like seasoning.
Yeah, the seasoning. You wouldn't eat raw meat. So it's just find something with the texture that you like, season it the same way, and your taste buds will adjust to the good stuff that you're putting in it.
I totally get that. Back in the 90s, I was in Japan for 3 months.
Talk that talk.
Oh my gosh, it was so crazy. So 2 weeks in, my body started to go through sugar withdrawals. I was losing my mind. I'm talking about the irritability, the headache, the sweats. It was horrible.
It's another drug. So
Oh, and until you really understand it, and until you really understand how much sugar is just in our foods naturally, the way that they're processing it and preparing it, it was so bad that when I realized that I needed sugar, and I couldn't get like a candy bar, right? So they didn't have like Snicker and Twix, like all the stuff we have here. I was literally going to like these dessert bars, and I would get like 4 and 5 desserts, trying to just get the culmination of sugar that I needed, because I would eat one and I was like, it's not sweet enough. Oh my
food
gosh.
is different outside of America. Let me tell you, I could probably be 6
Horrible.
feet right now, but when I was in elementary,
Come on.
they used to let me drink coffee,
Come
and I would
on.
only drink coffee because I could fill the cup with sugar, and that's really what I was doing.
That's
It's
all you
a
wanted
thing-
was the
thing of sugar.
sweetness.
So, you know, I'm blaming
That's it.
sugar that I'm not 6 feet out here, y'all. I'm suing sugar.
Why are you playing? Let's talk about all the hormones and stuff in the milk, right?
Right.
That RBT and everything else is in there, and then you wonder why we have overdeveloped children that look like they're 36 when
Right.
they're 12. It is so serious.
It's a lot in the food, and so you have to treat your body as the temple that it is, and look at ingredients, see what's in it, and adjust accordingly, because you know you might not feel bad today, but you want the good quality of life later on.
You don't want all the ailments
Listen.
in and out of hospital. Like, so you're gonna either pay for it on the front end,
Or the back
making
end.
healthier choices,
Or the back end.
Yeah, on the back end, medication
That.
and being in hospitals, and so
That.
it's really about preventing getting to that point.
Yeah.
Because once you're there, it's a painful existence.
You're right. And you know, to that point, I think that the deeper conversation is nobody ever taught us how to understand our body as a system. Well, hell, we don't understand most systems as systems. But our parents don't have those conversations with us. Our teachers don't have those conversations with us. So we never really have a real construct of ourselves. So if somebody was to sit down, imagine you sit down with your 4 or 5 year old and you're saying, okay, so listen, your body is a temple. Your body is a whole organism that takes care of you based upon what you put into it.
Right.
So when you put anything into it, that's going to be fuel. But everything that you do alters your body. Everything that you put in it or on it changes or affects your body.
Facts.
So like if you give that to a child at a young age, they will become more discerning. They will become more discriminating about what it is. But we don't have those conversations. So we
Right.
just get food put into us and we go, here, eat that. Ooh, you're gonna like this. This is good.
Right.
And oftentimes it becomes rites of passage. So think about the first birthday. What do? They shove a whole cake in front of a kid.
Right.
Here's a cupcake. Go ahead, get that. They take things off of their plate, the sweetest things, the saltiest things. Here, suck on that bone,
Yeah.
right? So they
Pause.
start to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's all of that, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of misguided tradition, and if we don't form new traditions, then like we have enough evidence to see where it's going to lead.
Oh my
down
gosh,
the
absolutely.
road for us, you know?
Absolutely. So to your point about tradition too, what a lot of people don't understand is our traditions around food. And so if we go all the way back to like the beginning, like a lot of people make jokes about how different cultures and different groups utilize seasoning different.
Yeah.
Some groups don't use seasoning at all.
Right.
Y'all know where I'm going with this. If you know, then you know. And the reason for that is because back in the day, certain groups had like the finest cuts of meat. And to use seasoning was meant that was seen to be that you were part of a lower class because you were given the poorest cuts of meat. So you had to do things to it in order to make it palatable. So back in the day, if you use seasonings, spices is what they called them, then you were of a lower class. And so it was kind of like a sign of wealth. I don't need to put anything on this. It's such a fine cut of meat that I don't need anything.
Wow.
And so then you have groups, if you think about historically, who just never learned how to work with seasonings. And then you look at other folks of different classes who said, this is not even something that a human should be eating.
Right.
Okay, we're going to have to do a whole lot to doctor this up in order to be able to ingest this to get any nutrients to save ourselves.
So here's a good question. Somebody who has that unhealthy relationship with food, what can they do to start to change that relationship?
Okay, so I got to hit you with the double claps because I always say therapy. Therapy. Okay, and it's like double claps, like make this sink in. Like therapy helps with so much because we're so disconnected from our bodies, we're so disconnected from our behavior. We don't even know why we do most of the things that we do. So getting into therapy to just even say, I just want to explore my relationship with myself. I want to know what questions should I be asking? Like what do I even need to know about food? What questions, what do I even need to be thinking about?
Right.
And it's really about how does food make you feel? Do you use food as fuel or do you use food for other things? Do you use food when you're going through a breakup? Do you use food when you're lonely? Do you use food when you're anxious? Do you use food when you go to bed at night? Do you use food to help you wake up in the daytime? Do you use food to keep you going throughout the day? And what are you feeling in those moments when you choose certain foods, right? So some of us will, for example, we may have insomnia and need things like melatonin or different teas or different herbs to help us go to sleep at night. We may have anxiety and not even realize it. Then we wake up in the morning and now we need caffeine. because we have too much melatonin in our system, either naturally or what we've taken prescriptive, sometimes over the counter. So then we need something to get us going. We may throw some sugar in it in order to give us that extra boost, even some cream to give us that extra boost. Now we're going for an hour or two, then we crash because that caffeine cannot sustain us. It gets us going, it gets us moving, but it also does some, depending on who you ask, some detrimental things, although some research is showing us that caffeine by itself can actually have some benefit in moderation, everything in moderation. But then we get to the top of the day, and are you eating some good leafy green vegetables, some nutrient dense kind of foods, or are you going to, what did you call it, jack and crack? So it's like, are you getting some good food that's going to carry you through the day? Or are you going to jack and crack, right? Or are you going down the street to get something that you really don't even know how they're preparing it or what's in it? Are you eating things that are flavored with MSG and high amounts of salt and high amounts of sugar that spike your insulin levels, spike your blood sugar? And most people will be like, hell, I don't know. I just get it. I get a number 3, or I get what's sitting inside the tray.
Yeah.
You have no idea how they're preparing it. And
So, okay, here's a question. Is there an easy way to change one's relationship with food?
no.
No. Okay.
No,
so
it's
it's
never
gonna
easy.
take work.
Right. Everything takes work
Right.
though, right?
And
So it's
so-
like pick your hard.
So that said, therapy is key, which I think all black people should be getting free therapy
Listen.
from the government for life. That's a whole nother story.
Come on, as part of reparations.
Right,
I
right.
absolutely
And
believe
so,
that.
no, I wholeheartedly believe in therapy, and you know that's one step that they can take. What about people who don't have insurance? What options do they have to try to find a therapist?
Oh my gosh, they can still find a therapist. I always tell people, don't ever let money be the reason that you don't get therapy, because most of us also offer pro bono and sliding fee scale service programs. Pro bono means absolutely free. The therapists in my office, for example, in order to even be a part of our practice, they agree to have at least 2 pro bono slots on their caseload at all times.
Okay, so how does someone find a therapist, and how do they find out about the pro bono?
Okay, so let's say, for example, that they need pro bono. They can start doing keyword searches on their favorite internet site. They can contact community centers in their area. They can look up directories for therapists that they actually like and reach out to those therapists and ask them, hey, I recognize that your fee is X, Y, and Z, but I'm curious, do you offer slide and fee scale? And slide and fee scale is based upon oftentimes what an individual makes or where they are on the poverty line for their current income. I have clients sometimes that may pay $5 for therapy, $20 for therapy.
So finances is not an excuse. If you
Never.
don't have
It's never an
insurance,
excuse.
you can find somebody to be a therapist.
Yep.
So, okay, next question. Should black people see a black therapist?
You know what? I wish that I could say yes, but it's a really loaded question, and it's also not always realistic, especially depending on the area that you're in. So we're in Atlanta. This is a black mecca.
Right.
We are here, we are all over the place, and we are ready to serve. But someplace like LA or Milwaukee or St. Paul or any other city, well, let me make it plain. 86% of clinicians in the United States are white. 86%. So the likelihood that you're going to get a clinician that is non-white, and then on top of that is black, we make up roughly 3 to 4% of the profession. 3 to
Something's not
4%.
quite right about that.
Well, and that's why we are working so hard to make it better. Part of what we are working on as part of our macro programs is a training program to basically support emerging clinicians of color. We believe that a lot of this has to do with just an inequity in what it takes to be able to go from education to full licensure. We don't have the luxury oftentimes of that entire process. A lot of people don't realize how much training goes into being a clinician. You're talking 4 years of undergrad. You're talking 2 to 4 years of a master's program. And if you go into a PhD program, even longer. Then you have internships, you have practicums. Then when you come out, you have to be supervised for another 3,000 hours, 3 years. So sometimes it can take 10 to 15 years before you become fully licensed.
Right.
Other people may be able to do it more quickly, but they have to be able to sit and work in unpaid situations. And for a lot of us, we haven't had the silver spoon in our mouth. We've had to figure out how to pay to get through graduate school. We have to work oftentimes to be able to get through. We don't have 3 years to be able to sit in low income when we have families, when we have children, we have other responsibilities. And so we want to find ways to be able to support clinicians of color. There's a mental health crisis that's happening, and it is growing rapidly. And so without our representation and without us there are nuances that get missed. But I will also say this, there are benefits to seeing individuals who may not necessarily look like you, who may not necessarily be your gender or your religious persuasion.
Give me 5 benefits for me seeing
Okay,
a
so I can
therapist
tell you
that
about my
doesn't
own
look like me.
therapist, right?
Okay.
Because I believe, and I tell everybody needs a therapist. And if your therapist doesn't have a therapist, run, get lost, okay? Because it is not a hierarchy in how it works. Now, some of us, I will say that not all therapists are created equal, but we all have at least the basic training to be able to hold space. So therapy is just one part. And the real deal is most people are never going to go into the office for therapy. We know that. That's why as therapists, we do a lot in the community because we believe that therapy is a way of life. It's not just about somebody coming to sit on your couch. But the reality is that most people will never sit in front of a therapist. But there are other things that you can do. And so I think it's important, first and foremost, you got to make up your mind that you want it to be different. And you have to make up your mind that you want it to be different for you. Because if you're trying to do it for anybody else, not gonna work, not gonna last. So you can't do it because the fine dude down the street that you're trying to get these dates with, that you want to marry, is vegan. You will be super mad like 2 weeks in when you're really trying to sneak a burger.
Right.
You can't do it because your doctor is telling you that you have to and you don't believe in it. You can't do it because your mama and them is begging you and they really want you to do it. It really has to be internal. And then the other part of that is that you have to have support. Most of us have such like a limited experience with food. Listen, real talk, most of us don't even know how to cook. Let's just keep it real. You know, especially, I'm sorry, y'all 30-somethings, y'all 20-somethings. We did it though, we didn't teach them how to. But nobody really taught us either.
Right.
So most of us have really limited repertoires for what we can cook. And we are eating the same things over and over and over. That's a problem. So we have to get really serious about it. We have to see it as something to learn like anything else. You had to learn how to drive. You had to learn how to do the work that you do. You had to learn how to work out properly. So you also have to learn how to eat properly. So seek out great places. Don't just go to your favorite restaurant, although that's really great because most of the time you won't be able to afford that. But if you go to your favorite restaurant and you ask them, how are you preparing this? Do you guys offer any cooking classes? Do you know any place that I could go? I'm interested in eating like this all the time, but I can't necessarily afford it. Oftentimes these are communities because this is a lifestyle. So-and-so at this restaurant also is cool with so-and-so at this restaurant. Both of them likely shop at such and such a place. There are cooking classes all over your city.
Outside of your city, everybody has the internet.
Oh my gosh, come
YouTube
on,
University,
come on.
any spices
Listen.
or anything you want to order, Amazon.
You
So
can learn
that's really
anything
not
now.
an excuse anymore. Like whatever you want to learn, type it in.
Listen,
YouTube.
it never was. I saw something the other day, it made me laugh because they said that back in the day before the internet, they thought the joke was if you want to hide knowledge from anybody, put it in a book, right? So then they thought that once we had the internet, that was going to change everything. But then you look at what people still utilize the internet for. Most people aren't using the internet for their wellness. Most people are not using the internet for their financial health. Most people are not using the internet to increase their knowledge base. Hell, you got the top universities and colleges in the country offering free curriculum. I will tell people, be very conscious about what you are absorbing, because that is food too.
Right.
That is emotional food. That is psychological food. That is intellectual food. So who are you following? And when you are watching and digesting these things, are they making you feel better about yourself? Are they inspiring you? Are they aspirational? Are they inspirational? Or are they making you feel self-conscious?
Right.
Are they making you feel unworthy? Are they making you feel like you're not good enough? And half the time, these things are so filtered and edited. Oh my gosh, you don't even know what's real anymore.
Yeah, I've heard a long time ago. It's like we're comparing like our lives to everybody else's highlight reel, and so
Absolutely, the highlight reel.
Not sustainable whatsoever. And so for me, like part of my self-care is I'm just off of the internet. And so, you know, I mentioned this. You're one of the stars of the new film Marilyn Monroe, directed by yours truly.
And
so,
he gave me a part.
No, I did not give you the part. You earned that. Like you came and brought it. And so I posted once we wrapped the film, like on my Instagram, and I saw all of the comments, like the notifications, but I didn't read one comment. And you know, one thing T.I. says is, if you live by the cheers, you will die by the boos.
Come on.
And so for me, I didn't need any external validation.
Yeah.
It was just,
it's what
right
you
now I'm
do.
in the zone of just creating, putting out the art, like whoever I rock with in real life, y'all can call me, we can talk about it, but you just have, like, it has to stop at some point, and it's so easy to just addictively scroll. And so I know for me, if it's on my phone, it's too easy, so I just delete the app. And if I need to go back on there, I have to re-download it, re-log in.
Which takes time,
makes
you think about it. You be like, I don't want to do all that.
Yeah, it's not worth it. So if I'm not going to send a specific message to someone or go there for a specific reason, I just stay off. And I can definitely see a difference in just happiness and joy outside of social media. Like, I'd rather be like actually traveling and doing things than posting about it so somebody can like it. I really don't care if you like it, you know?
I love that, because for me, my pages are about giving something away. So like when you go to my pages, you never see, like, I'm not posting the highlights. I am posting things that are going to feed you, that are going to make you think, that are going to change something for you to raise your vibration. And I've never been about following the followers, right? I'm not about the likes. I could care less. My team and I, we debate this idea of taking away the access to see how many people have viewed it or liked it. I don't care if it's one person or a million. That means that was for you. That was information that was going to help you. I don't care how many people like or don't like it. And I think the other thing is what a lot of people don't realize, because I had no clue. I'm not a person who is really a social media person. I had no idea till my clients started to talk to me about, like, when you see somebody shot, they've taken like 60 shots to get that shot. Like, to me, that is insane. But that is people's real way of life.
It's their real way of life, and it's kind of wild because it translates outside of social media. Off camera, you asked me about like dating. So I've done the dating apps and tried them, but
are you dating now? Are you
no. I'm
married?
I'm single right now.
Single. Wait a minute. Wait. I gotta ask it the right way. Is
it.
There anybody that thinks that they are in a relationship with you?
There's nobody that I know of that thinks that they're in a relationship.
You know,
with
you gotta ask nowadays.
So what I find is that the more work you do on yourself and like the higher you vibrate, your pool becomes smaller and smaller.
Truly.
And just from my experience, I haven't run into women who have done or are doing the work on themselves. So it's kind of the victim mentality, and everything's your problem. And it's like, I don't have a problem admitting if something's my issue, but 99% of that has something to do with somebody before me.
So listen, man, listen. So I keep saying that at some point I'm going to have to do this networking mixer, because there are so many incredible people who cannot seem to find their incredible person. And believe it or not, it's more women who are doing the healing work than men. You are in the minority, but there are more black men that are starting to come to the table to recognize, wait a minute, I deserve to feel things too. I deserve to be connected to my body. I deserve to have the space to be more than just a protector and a provider for somebody else's way of life.
Right.
Like, I deserve to be recognized in my full humanity. And I love that for our men. And I think it's necessary, because you can't really protect and provide for somebody anyway if you are disconnected and on autopilot yourself. Right. Like, that's huge.
There's so much we could talk about there, just from, the mental brainwashing.
Yes.
But I will say this has been the best year of my life internally.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Like, internally. So this is the first year that I've been happy, and like joy is a normal thing, right? And so part of that is, one, the ayahuasca journey that I took last year. Like,
we gotta talk about that.
Yeah, it was such a healing journey. And I've always been a person that's been working on myself, but that was the thing that lifted the weight of the world off my shoulders.
Okay, wait, now go slow, because for some folks who have never heard ayahuasca, they're like, the what journey? So you got to talk about it.
So I've shared this before on the show, but ayahuasca is basically a plant medicine that you can do. I did it in Costa Rica. It's indigenous to like the Amazon, and so they take a couple of different plants, combine it into a tea, and you drink the tea, and it's a like psychoactive drug, so medicine. So it contains dimethyltryptamine, and basically the medicine gives each person what they need, and what I needed was healing. And so, when I said I took that, just single-handedly the best thing I've ever done, like, in my life. And so, fast forward to this year, like, coming off of ayahuasca, doing therapy, studying the gene keys, really just learning more about myself. Like, I'm just a different person than I was a year ago, and I'm proud of me.
I'm proud of you.
Sure.
Oh my gosh!
I highly recommend therapy for, again, all black people, but like definitely black men. Like, even you as a black woman won't understand this, only another black man. There's an energy that you have in America, knowing like you can like not have to even do anything, but it's a possibility you can just get killed, right? And so that takes a strain, whether you are conscious of it or not, on your mental health.
Absolutely.
Constantly seeing images of us killed in the media, on the news, like, that does something to black people. It makes you have this like internal feeling of less than, or not being worth anything, which I think is part of the reason why so many of our like youth can just easily kill somebody that looks just like them, right? And so, for me, it's about traveling outside of America as much as possible. Like, when I go to Ghana, it's peaceful.
I went a few months ago for the first time.
And so,
different experience.
You really have to take your life into your own hands and decide what is the life that you want and what is it going to take to get that life. So for me, back to the dating thing, I have a great life. I'm happy, peaceful. So anybody that's coming and not bringing happiness and peace, it's not gonna last long. You know what I mean? I say people write themselves out of the scripts of my life, and so that's where I'm at. Open, but definitely like it has to be alignment. I'm more focused on alignment. She's still gotta be fine, but
what does fine look like? See, don't get me started. Don't get me started.
Well, see, when I say fine, honestly, she has to look good to me, and I have to be attracted to her. But I have to be attracted to what's on the inside as well, like how you treat like other people, how you treat my friends, how do you talk when you're mad. I'm paying attention to all of that stuff. And my therapist pointed out to me, like, in talking about some of these like interactions with women, is like, can you see how that relates to your childhood? Always trying to like feel like you can do something to win somebody's love. And it's like, damn, bar. No, I didn't like make that connection, that's an important thing that you can get from therapy, is somebody that is able to look at the whole picture and make those connections that you might not be able to make.
So let me ask you then, when you are going out on dates and you think about the way that she is showing up or not showing up, the way that she is eating and what she's not eating, the way that she's talking and what she's digesting in her everyday life, how important are those things to you for your own well-being?
I mean, everything is important. So I've actually never dated a vegan. So
really?
So all of the women that I've dated have not been vegan, but typically like they'll eat or start to adopt more of a vegan lifestyle. But I'm looking at how you eat.
How does that affect your own diet? Is that a challenge?
No, it's not a challenge for me, because you can sit there with a bowl of ribs and I'm still gonna eat what I eat. Like I'm not tempted to eat anything. I don't miss anything.
Interesting.
So like with me traveling around the world and really like eating the best food that's out there, this is nothing that I'm missing because I know where to go. New York is where I go when I really want to just have some good vegan food.
Really? New York has the best?
They got the best vegan food in the U.S. When we talk about me, let's talk about you. Can you
so
kind of
good.
tell me about like what you actually do in a clinical setting and on set, like as a therapist?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So in a clinical setting, I have a behavioral health firm, and that includes a group therapy practice. So in the practice, we see folks in individual therapy, couples therapy, and couple is not just intimate partner. That could be friends, as you said, like couple, meaning two, or sometimes family dynamics. Our practice is one of the few where we are a kink-friendly practice. So we see poly couples, we see triads, monogamous folks. Everybody deserves the right to therapy. So we see folks across the spectrum. We do groups and corporate wellness and all kind of things. So when you think behavioral health or just mental health care, we do that. Then we also have a media marketing and consulting division where we do all things mental health. So you talk about on sets, we do everything in front of the camera, behind the camera, in front of the mic for radio, behind the mic. We may be on sets to look at the wellness of the cast and crew. We may help to make sure that the scripts look like they needed to look for particular diagnoses or for therapeutic sessions, how a therapist would respond to something, how somebody with a particular diagnosis would respond.
Let me ask you this. I recently watched a documentary which I felt was like one of the greatest things I've seen. It's called Out of Darkness, right?
Okay.
And so it starts with our history, thousands of years before slavery. How important is it for us and our mental health to like go and learn that history, because everything we see is like, oh, not another slave movie.
Oh my God.
Because it keeps going to that and to the brutality and just images of us being killed. Like,
yes.
How obviously it affects us in a negative way.
Yes.
How important is it to go and see like that alternative and attach yourself to these powerful images of Africans where we actually come from?
Okay, so listen, I took my own kids. There were 3 documentaries, and we didn't even go that far, but we went 3 documentaries that I think that were life-changing. Exterminate All the Brutes. I'm not sure if you...
I heard Tyson mention that. I haven't watched it yet, though.
Listen, life-changing.
Okay.
Exterminate All the Brutes. Then PBA or NPR, I think, did something that was America after the Civil War. It was the fall of Reconstruction to help us understand what has happened to us here and how every time we have started to thrive, there are intentional things that are done to us in order to be able to set us back again and again. There is a lot that people don't even understand just as recently as the 60s and the civil rights era and what happened with black men and the way that black men were being lobotomized, institutionalized, made to be seen as aggressive, increased mental health diagnoses. And what a lot of folks really don't realize, and our profession needs to do better in terms of taking accountability, just what the fathers of mental health. Mental health was not designed even for us as people of color.
Right.
This was one of the most racist institutions, and the mental health national institutions were literally used in order to further subjugate, exploit, and oppress us back in the day. I mean, the fathers of psychology said that as black people, we didn't even have the psychological makeup to be able to develop mental illness. We were not smart enough. We physiologically did not have the cognitive parts to develop mental illness. But then later on, ironically, they decided that drapetomania, which meant that if you were an enslaved person and you were trying to flee enslavement, they somehow found a way to develop that as a mental illness, specifically about black folks, that somehow if you wanted to flee enslavement, then there was something wrong with you.
Right.
And when they looked at treatments, what they said was, if you really want to get an enslaved person, and I'm using different language than them, if you really wanted to get an enslaved person well, to cure their illness, start by cutting off one toe at a time, and it will put the life back into them. And so when we talk about the torture, you mentioned earlier about the idea of, as a black man, just knowing that any moment you walk out of your house or just being in your home, not ever feeling safe, that at any moment you could die, that your skin makes you a target, right? There is a psychological vibration of anxiety that we vibrate at, of depression that we vibrate at, of acute stress disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder. Like the idea that we haven't completely lost our minds means that most of us have disconnected from our bodies just so that we can survive. Because to have to feel that all the time would cause your body to shut down. That's why we have so many physical ailments, the headaches, the backaches, the panic attacks, the anxiety attacks, the insomnia. That's why so many of us are walking around self-medicating with food, with marijuana, with alcohol, with sex, with the music, everything, just trying to suppress all of the feelings of rage and anxiety and fear and panic and anger and resentment and all those things. But the problem is when you try to take care of all of those things to just suppress them, you suppress all the love, all the joy, all the happiness, all the everything. And so the key is you have to be taking care of yourself in a way on the inside and the outside, in ways that bring all of that negative down to a place where you can control it and you can live with it and you can cope with it in ways that also allow you to feel the other side of that, right? Like you can't feel yourself without feeling yourself.
Right.
And that is the good, the bad, and the indifferent, all the neutral. And it's all happening constantly. And we just don't realize what's going on because they don't want us to.
Yeah,
they don't want us to.
It's a lot. I feel like we have to do a part 2. Will you come back and do a part 2 at some point?
Absolutely. I will come anytime you ask me.
Yeah, because it's so much that we can dive into. I really think you should watch that, and that's perfect timing.
Oh,
too.
Look at that. Okay, it's time. It's time.
Yeah, and so I definitely want to dive into some more.
Listen, I'm a foodie, so anytime you invite me to some food, it's on.
Where can people find you?
They can find me at Talk to Spirit everywhere. It's Talk, the number 2 Spirit. They can find the practice, information, how to get referrals, consultations. We do live mental health chats every week so people can get access to free advice, free tips, tools, techniques. Just come, talk to Spirit. Think about it like that. I got to talk to Spirit. Talk, the number 2 Spirit. I'm always around.
Spirit, thank you so much.
Please, I love
Dropped
you.
so many jewels. We have to do this again.
We're going to do this and we're going to be all over the world. Though. Y'all heard him say he was coming.
Hey, no,
he said he was coming.
Y'all heard her say
You heard him say
so
it.
it's on camera. That's
this.
a contract.
We're doing
verbal
this.
contract. But thank you so much. It's so good to see you.
I love you. I love you.
Same time.
Family.